going to call the April 16th, 2025 meeting of the Charter Revision Commission to order. We don't have approval of the minutes on the agenda, but has anyone gotten to see them, or do we just get them?
I took a look
Did
at
you have to
them.
look at them?
I didn't have any updates when I looked at them.
Do we
I
pref-
did commend, and I don't know if this is maybe after the motion, but commended Jessica for reviewing the Monday at the library, which was quite a thing to be able to highlight as many names as were possible on that. So that was quite a feat.
I know, she did a good job. Denise is just seeing a little typo.
Do we have to make a motion?
Yes. Do we all feel like we can vote?
Motion, promotion,
Yeah.
and then discussing.
Yes. Yes, Denise, Miss Parliamentarian, yes.
Co-op board.
Would you like to make a motion?
I don't have one.
Would you like to make a motion, Denise?
I move that we approve the minutes as stated.
Denise moves that we approve the minutes of both the April 3rd and March 31st meetings. And there is one little typo on April 3rd.
Line 45.
I'd note, since we're calling it a type, well, you should actually name it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then,
It's in the April 3rd minutes, line 45. It should say O'Connor adjourned the meeting, not adjourned, so it's just an ED.
and in the March 31st minutes, there actually are several different names that were not exactly correct, and
Okay.
it feels to me like that was a really large group of people, a complex night,
Yeah.
and we know the intent by
Yes.
the fanatics, so
Yes, so we'll.
I don't think we need to correct all of those.
No. And since people were just getting up and saying their names, it's really is commendable that
Yeah.
Jessica was able to do it really well. Okay, so if there are no other corrections or comments, all those in favor of accepting the minutes of April 3rd and March 31st, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
We're not using these microphones, right?
No. I know, it's sort of in your face. Now, I put this, I just had the status of the annual town meeting survey and everything. I think we wanted to put it on every agenda so that's, if anybody in the world wanted to come and talk to us about it, it's on the agenda.
Sure.
But Maya wanted me to let you folks know that, and she's not looking, just for all of us, Maya is not looking at the survey results. She's just looking at the numbers, so when she comes to the discussion, we're all looking at them for the first time. We're up to 204 survey responses. And we've got, what, 2 more weeks? I think it was April 30th that we said.
25th.
Oh, April 25th. Thank you, Joy. So we got another week or so. So we can keep pumping that out. So that's where we are with that. I'm just writing that down.
I did give a bump to the district chair, so hopefully
Yes.
those who are RTM members in different districts received an email from your chair.
District 9 did, yes.
Hey,
I did.
District 8 got ours, yep.
District 7.
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, so that was good, that went out, and we'll put it out again. The 1 week to go ticker, clock is ticking, get your responses in. And the plan, just to sort of recap, I figure we should recap it, is May 1st is when we're gonna look at the survey results, and I'm gonna put, as far as I have, everything we've heard in any meeting where we've talked to RTM. I'm gonna put a packet of all that stuff together so that we can have that for May 1st. And the idea was to hopefully, knock on wood, we'll find out what happens, try to make some kind of decision on May 15th.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then once we make that decision, the domino effect happens. We have to
Right.
figure out about 5,000 other things. So
good.
if that still sounds good for everybody. So do we have any more comments or anything about the annual town meeting stuff? I don't have any, or do you have anything?
I just felt awkward earlier today. I responded to an email that was
Yeah.
addressed to all of us, and
Yeah.
it looked to me like it warranted a response, and I was interested in looking at the question, and so I did.
Yeah.
And because I did, I'd like to just spend 3 minutes to read my response so that it's
Right.
in the public record.
Yeah.
Tom Franks wrote to us and asked if we had any information about the communities that do what he's calling a hybrid town meeting. So where there is a gathering of one sort or another and voting on at least some of the business on Australian ballot. And I didn't try to find other towns. There's likely to be other towns that don't have charters that do have some combination of those things, but I didn't go looking for those. I went back to the work that we had done last year around the charters research, looked at, identified those communities that it would be worth finding out a little bit more about, and then went and looked at their warning for this year's town meeting to see whether it was all on the ballot or whether there were some that went on in the meeting, and here's the results. Barry Town votes in an open meeting on deadlines for paying taxes and assessments and on the sale of town property. The rest of the open meeting is just for information. In Colchester, they vote in an open meeting only on the select board salaries, and the rest of that open meeting is just for information. Essex Junction is solely an informational meeting. All of the voting is done by Australian ballot. Hartford has an interesting situation, or an interesting system. They actually have several scheduled meetings. They have what they call their town meeting series. And so there's 4 separate times that they come together, but from best I could tell, the 3 of those are basically just deeper dive informational meetings. There's different kinds of things that are presented on each of those nights, but these are weeknight meetings, and there were no decisions being made. It looks like it's just to lead up to the one meeting where there are some decisions made, but that looks like this. They meet actually on a Saturday. They're the only one. All the others hold the meeting part of this on a weeknight. Hartford holds theirs on a Saturday and then votes by Australian ballot the following Tuesday. They vote in open meeting on deadlines for paying taxes and on salaries for the select board, the moderator, treasurer, and the board of civil authority, and the rest of the meeting is just for information.
That's Hartford?
That's Hartford,
Right.
yeah, as the culmination of their, this is the 4th of their 4 meetings. Shelburne, they vote in open meeting only on the select board salaries, and the rest is just for information. And in South Burlington, Springfield, and St. Johnsbury, they're just informational meetings with no voting. And then I looked at one other thing out of my own curiosity when I was looking at all this stuff, and then I was realizing that this addressed most of the communities. Between these communities and the cities in Vermont, that's most of the places that have a larger population than Brattleboro. So I went and looked at the population list in cascading order to just see what is the largest community that holds open town meeting, where they do the majority of the business, at least, maybe not all of it, but the voting on the budget and other substantive town business in the meeting. And that's Middlebury, with a population of 9,200. That's what I learned and what I reported to Tom, and you all saw it earlier,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because we're supposed to do our business in the public, I just wanted to get it in the record tonight. Thank you for your patience.
No. Oh, Seth. Oh, David Levenbach.
Thank you. I hope this is not germane, but this report that Mr. Elwell gave raises a question in my mind. I was surprised at the library forum, the number of people who liked Australian ballot. I was not among those, but there you go. The question I have is, from what you reported in terms of information meetings where they use Australian ballot, our tradition in town, though it's not always followed, is you can ask questions, you cannot make debating points. And so the question I would ask is can we find out where there are such informational meetings and Australian ballot, whether they in fact permit arguments?
So in some cases, it was explicitly clear that it was just for the imparting of information and then questions for clarification, much as ours is supposed to be. So a true informational meeting. In other cases, it was more ambiguous than that. Clearly, in the cases where some of the business leads to a vote, and then there's also some informational time around the other things that they're going to vote on the ballot later. It seems like there's already in that meeting, there's dialogue. So there may be some dialogue related to the other items too, but it's not clear from the warning that it invites debate.
Okay, thank you. But if that's the route we end up going, I would suggest making that informational session subject to allowing for argument. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, yeah, and then I think when we're looking at stuff on May 1st, we may think of things that we might want to know for
Yes.
May 15th, or we may have all the stuff that we need. We don't know, so.
Yeah.
But there are questions like that will probably come
Yeah,
up.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And we should try with each other, I think, to name things on May 1st that we feel like we'd like to know before we vote on May
Yeah.
15th,
Yeah.
so that we have a chance to button some of that down. I think that would be good. And I'd like to make clear that what I just read was the results of my research. We were asked a question and I looked at some stuff and I reported out the facts that I found. Not necessarily my own, doesn't reflect my own thoughts of what might be the best system for us here in Brattleboro.
Yeah. And I know we have that other chart. You did that big chart that, I don't know if that's where you got that info.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's where I started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's a good one that we can make sure we circulate around. You know,
That's
as
on
well.
our
Website.
website
yeah.
under the
Yeah.
backup materials or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Meeting materials.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do we have anything else we want to talk about town meeting stuff? But we'll just know May 1st and May 15th. We can do it. Now we have, Hannah did some work on the non-citizen voting. Do we want to go through that?
Yeah, we can go through that.
Maya is like fine if we want to vote on it.
This was sort of a compilation of what we had identified as the provisions in other charters that we liked. So the way that I structured this was to add additional definitions to the subsection 1C in Article 2. My one thought was this new subsection 5. I don't know if that really fits here, but looking through the charter, it didn't really seem to fit anywhere else. But I think in light of the current political climate, it is an important provision to include. It just doesn't necessarily feel right in this definition section, but it seemed to fit the best there. So I don't know if we maybe end up retitling that section or somehow, change that a little bit. But so basically the non-citizen voter will mirror the youth voter, except that instead of being a minor, it's a person who's a legal resident non-citizen. And a lot of them had this provision making it very clear that this does not change their ability to vote in any state or federal election. So I lumped that also in for the youth voter because that seemed to be a good provision to be applicable in both circumstances. And then all of the other changes are essentially just adding or non-citizen voter after youth voter and eliminating moving the and as appropriate. And on line 2 on the second page, there was just an errant apostrophe there that I eliminated. That's not, I just wanted to make that clear that that was just sort of a cleanup thing because I was there and noticed that it was an issue. And then I made note of other sections that in light of our other discussions, maybe don't need to change at the moment, but where there are references to youth voter, and it would probably make sense to also include a reference to non-citizen voter if we were to keep those provisions.
Right. Thank you, Hannah. Does anyone have any comments?
I think it's great. Thank you, Hannah. It all is nice and clear, makes good sense. I think you did a good job of taking what we had previously discussed and creating something that is, sort of our own version of this, but borrows from the other 3 communities in Vermont that have done this. I'm agnostic as to whether paragraph 5 stays in that part or becomes its own section. I think it is important language to have in the charter because of this different, broader permission that we're giving. It would allow more participation of the youth voters and the non-citizen voters. So I think it's great. I had an opportunity to talk with Hannah briefly earlier today about one thing that I'd like to recommend we put in just for clarity. I think it's,
I included that in this draft.
you did.
I did. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Actually,
Is this the
unless you
latest
put it
draft?
someplace else, I don't see it. I see the subchapter 1. I don't see the in Brattleboro.
I said the town because that's already a defined term in the charter. On line 5.
Otherwise qualified to vote in the town? Is that?
Line 5, subpart 2, non-citizen voter means any legal resident of the town who is not a
I
citizen of
see.
the United States.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, you did do that. I had, in my mind's eye, I had it appearing in the definition of legal resident, not up in there. So that's why I missed it. Thank you for putting it in. I'm all for this and happy to move it unless anybody has any concerns.
I like it because it's very straightforward and understandable. That's why I like it. Yep. Other comments? Questions? Peter, do you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the language as it has been presented to us this evening by Hannah.
Peter makes a motion that we approve the non-citizen voting language as presented by Hannah in Hannah's draft. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, we can check that off our list. Now, we have these other 2, and Peter and I each have a job to do, and we have not sat down together to look this stuff over, so we're not here to tell you, give you some big final presentation and have a vote tonight. And I was going to say something which I won't say. But there are things I think we have to clarify.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's become, as somebody who was on the select board, I'm reading the select board part, realizing there are things that have to be clarified, and I think you're looking at the same thing.
I think it's going to be fun, actually. In a few more days, when we've each completed our own review,
Yeah.
we'll actually get together, and by the next time we come
Yeah.
together as a commission, we'll have something to suggest. And yes, I think the fact that we come to this from different but shared experience in the system,
Yeah.
I think is going to be interesting for us. And what I certainly feel, which is why I thought this was important, what I think we share from the conversations we have had around getting at this work, it's not just that there's some language that feels like archaic and unclear, but some things that actually don't reflect well the actual conduct of the business. And we think that, I think we're going to land in a place that we'll be able to recommend something that is easier for the public to understand and hopefully also more useful in terms of what it actually says about who does what.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think in some ways when you read it, there are assumptions made based on what's here in the charter that aren't necessarily, it's not vague, I don't know what the right word is, but there are, I think, assumptions made that there are certain roles that really don't exist.
It'd be good
Yeah.
to leave less to interpretation
Yes.
and be clearer that, I mean, that you can't say everything,
Yeah.
but the things we say should be nice and clear as to what they mean.
Yeah.
And right now, that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not really till you read it and you've been in the role that you realize, wait a sec, you know.
Yeah.
So I never read the charter when I was on the select board. You know what I mean? I don't know how many times you referenced the charter. I'm reading it going, wait a sec, you know what I mean? So I think that's what we want to do is come back to one of the next meetings with an actual, something that we can all look at and hopefully vote on that night.
Yeah.
That's really thoughtful. Because those two sections are actually really important
Mm-hmm.
because those are roles that impact how our town government works
Every day.
every day. So we
Yeah.
have to get those right. And they haven't, I don't think, well, Maya's not here to remind me, but I don't think, they were there, they've been in there like that for like 40 years or something.
Mhm.
It's 40, yeah, and so it's been a long time since anybody's
Yeah.
actually looked at those two sections. So that's our plan, if that sounds okay to everybody.
You just jogged a thought for me that I'd like to name, just so we all have a clear expectation of what's coming. When I got to actually starting to work on this, it struck me, much as what you described, Hannah, about the placeholders for other sections that might need attention. There's a handful of places that mention the select board and or the town manager doing something that's not in the powers and duties section, it's just scattered. And so I think it's important as we do this that we also point to anything we think needs changing or clarifying in those
Yes, that's a
sections
good
as
idea.
well.
'Cause that was smart, Hannah, how you did it, so we remember. Yeah, because there is stuff everywhere. Yeah.
I don't know how you will present your work, I would commend a similar
Sure.
presentation maybe to like throwing it at the bottom as you are going through, to call out, I mean,
Yeah.
I
Sure.
feel like that works.
Yeah.
Yep.
But of course, as you organize yourselves.
No,
No,
and
this
the green
is-
and red is nice too. Strikeout and underline, I think we're probably all used to, but sometimes you have to really hunt, especially if it's a small change. So having it pop with the green and the red was helpful.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. So, we're quick tonight. Is there any other business that anyone wants to talk about? I think we're set for May, and I'm going to see if I can get Bob Fisher and Hillary Francis to come together at a meeting. So we're talking about how to move forward with them at the same time. Don't you think? I emailed that
I can
last
give just sort of a brief preview, and this is just based on my
Yeah.
own knowledge. I'm not speaking on behalf of the town attorney, but under the there's sort of the four paths for charter amendments,
Yeah.
and we are basically going to be looking at section B or section D,
Yeah.
and section D doesn't require us to get approval from anyone, but it's a much longer process, whereas section B, the only thing that would need to happen is that the select board would need to agree, and then it could go to a town meeting, and it's just the regular 30 to 40 days notice. Like that could
Yeah.
happen a lot faster.
Yeah.
But that would require us to, get on the select board agenda, come to them, probably spend some time, maybe one-on-one, like addressing concerns ahead of time so that we are all on the same page so that there aren't any holdups there, because if they reject it, then the only other way for us to proceed is under subsection D. And I think we've all
Right.
discussed what Peter was going to say, but the sentiment from the meeting that regardless of which direction we go, this should be a townwide vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why.
So in the end, we'll need to have the select board
That's the only way to get it
posted
to a
for
townwide vote.
whether or not we also do some of what is prescribed in the, I guess D, whichever the other one.
D would be for a special RTM only. We don't have to even look at that section if we go the select board route.
Right,
But that's the only alternative if select board doesn't agree with us.
right,
Right.
got it.
Right. So we have.
And you may have touched on this last time, but it feels to me like, because of the magnitude of this, and we've been seeking public engagement, we're not getting it tonight, but we have fortunately had more lately, and it'd be good to have some more before this all comes to a conclusion. Even if we are traveling under the more efficient route, where we don't have to have a series of meetings all at a particular time in a particular way, having at least one and maybe a few public informational meetings around this, a few
Yeah.
more sessions like at the library, but where we're actually presenting recommendations and
Yes.
having, hearing from the public about it,
Yeah.
feels to me like it will be important as we approach the end of our work.
Yeah. 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 And I did talk to Ian Goodnow just to make sure, and we're fine on the path we are taking if we get it to them by the end of the year. So,
Great.
but, and I've been, the legislature's been dealing with like charter changes for people. But when I was talking to Ian, it's like, we're not just making one little change to one little sentence. We're doing something that's a real overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we don't want to look at something and go, well, we should do it or not, because it might not get through. But we kind of have to realize what we're doing is not a sure bet. I mean,
Right.
we all may like it and the whole town may like it, but there could be one thing that's like a snag for one person
Yep.
in Montpelier.
And they actually get the ability to edit it.
Edit, right.
So if there is such a thing that, one or more things that turn out to be controversial in Montpelier, we won't necessarily get a no. We might get a yes that doesn't approve everything that we voted
Right,
for.
right. Yeah,
And I think in that case, it will be important for us to know, obviously we can't anticipate that, but to sort of understand how the different sections work together,
Yes.
because if they were to
Right.
strike one thing, but it has
Totally.
this sort of unintended consequence because they're not looking at it as a whole,
100%.
I think that that's important for us to know and to sort of really have a sense of, and like Peter said, to sort of clean it up so that everything's all sort of
Yeah.
grouped together so that you don't, there's less chance of that happening.
Exactly.
And we'll have the opportunity to give testimony to them
Yes.
as well. If something starts to go sideways, we'll know it's going sideways, and we'll
Yeah.
have a chance to explain why we think they should keep it the way we want it.
Yeah, and I was.
We might not win, but we'll get a
Which
chance
we'll
to at
try.
least say so.
Yeah, and I sort of talked to Ian about that too, saying, I think we're in a situation where there might have to be work we do. Like, I'm not saying like we're lobbyists, but we're going to may have to go up and talk to certain legislators
Absolutely.
and put this, because this is, I mean, we aren't just sending, I've seen like all these debates over one little thing that one town wants, and you're, oh my God. So, the thought of us bringing something, and I can pinpoint a couple of things, or at least one thing that, has been vetoed 3 times, and
Mhm.
there was the non-citizen voting, the governor
Right.
vetoed it either twice or 3 times, and when he vetoed it, there was enough people in the legislature at that time to override the veto. They don't have that sure override this
That's
year.
true.
So,
Yep.
but that doesn't mean we don't send it up there like that. But you know what I mean? So those are the things,
Yep.
and I, we can work with our legislative delegation to sort of, from them, get where they might see things. And, because we don't necessarily have the votes to override something that's been overridden in the past.
I don't mean to open a can of worms,
Yeah.
but in that way, I guess point of information, if you don't mind, for me, because it will be open. And you did bring up an example, so I'm not trying to lose the forest for the tree, but there's a chance with it being open that other things get struck,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Meaning we
Yes.
could lose our 17-year-old voters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, actually, the legislature can grab your charter in any session and change something in it that if they,
Meaning like today, they could just come together and
I
be
mean,
like,
today they could grab our charter and.
okay.
And
It's just
vote
usually
to
not
make a
top of
change
mind.
because they don't like something that's in it. That happens very, very, very rarely.
Right.
It's much more common that a community sends something up and doesn't get everything they want back.
Right.
But because we're creatures of the state and because our charters are actually part of the state statutes in that 24
Yeah.
annex or addendum or whatever it's called,
Appendix.
it's actually their law, not our law once it's a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we just have to like be prepared for that stuff. And I think between, you know, Wendy and
Yeah.
all the legislators that we have to have conversations with them and figure out, because we'll know what committees this will go to. And obviously we know now who's on those committees.
Right.
So if we have to, but then of course we have, I mean, this is what I was talking to Ian about. I said, you know, this could get up to the governor's office and he won't like non-citizen voting and he'll veto it.
Yeah.
And whether the legislature has the votes to override it, we don't know. Because it's not the same makeup when they were overridden before.
Do any of our 3 representatives serve on the House Government Operations Committee? No.
So,
And
Well,
neither
it's on
Wendy nor Nodder
transportation
does in
and
the
some
Senate. So
Judiciary.
it'll all be about communication with their colleagues.
Yes.
Rather than one of them carrying the ball.
right.
Yeah.
And if we have to take a road trip, all of us in a van.
And I think it'll probably be good for both the town level education and the legislative level education to maybe write like a I don't want to call it an argument, but like
Yes.
like a statement of our case and like explaining sort of the different types of amendments that are in here and
Yes.
the purpose behind that, like, you know, because there's some where it's very straightforward, like taking out the school board references, and then there's some where we may or may not be making like pretty substantive changes. So I think that having some sort of really well thought out literature on that will serve us on different levels.
And I think we have something from when it was done in the 80s that they put together, like explaining. I'll pull that out. You know, because that was a really well done thing.
Yeah, I
I
think you're
agree.
exactly right that that's important for the final stages here in town as
Yeah.
well as for when we take it north.
Yeah, yeah. Because we are adding that we want to have, in a nice way, more options for revenue collection.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's another one that
Right.
they might go like, we don't want you folks to get to do that. So, but that's why I think, you know, once we get the RTM thing figured out, then I'll get both Bob and Hillary on the same day to come in and talk about what we do next, how we approach it. Because it's going to involve Hillary if we do one way or the other. So we want her to weigh in. But it'll end, but it will just be the end of one thing and the beginning of something else for us to do whatever we do next. All right, so do we have anything else to talk about? The next 2 meetings will be good ones. More, you know, we're gonna have to spend a lot of time so we can get this thing figured out.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we're gonna actually talk about town meeting next
Oh,
time,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
We'll hear from the public if there's public who show up and wanna talk to us.
Yeah.
We'll see the results of the survey
Yeah.
and we'll begin
Yeah.
to wrestle ourselves with where are we gonna land.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I'm gonna have, by the next meeting, and I'm gonna ask Seth for not a lot of help, but just a little bit. It'll be easy help, because I don't wanna burden you. I'll put together, you know, from all the meetings, I've taken notes from like all the meetings that we've ever had where people have gotten up and said something to us. And if I have to go back and look at BCTV, I will. So I'll come with all of that or send it out before the May 1st meeting so that we'll see, you know, everybody's viewpoints.
That sounds great. If you're gonna be doing that, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
So again, just in terms of making sure that we're all on the same page, the piece that you and I are doing about the select board and town manager might not be May 1st then.
Yeah, well, we can talk and,
Yeah. I mean, we can give an update, but,
Yeah.
and we might finish by then,
We
but it
might.
just sounds to me
Right.
like this piece that
Right.
you're talking
I'll just-
about is gonna be a lot of work to pull
I
all this
mean-
stuff together.
at least I know when like I've written everything down, so it's not like I'm watching every BCTV tape blind, not knowing. So,
Okay.
do you know what I mean? But who knows,
Yeah.
because we had those meetings when a lot of people were coming and telling us what they thought. So,
Yeah, good.
yeah, so we'll get as much backup material as we humanly possible so we'll have May 1st and we can start right in. Because it was Hannah's idea, and I think it's a good one to pick a date to say, we're gonna shoot to make the decision on May 15th.
And
Totally.
and you weren't here, but we were saying, you know, we just have to decide what the direction is. We don't
Yeah.
have to definitively say like this is the format,
Yeah.
Right.
and like, but at least to get us started with coming up with proposals and drafts
Sure.
of the way that we're headed, and then we can tweak that as we go. But at least we
Yes.
are pushing ourselves off the cliff,
We don't know
doing
what to do
something.
the details on unless we choose
Right.
an option,
Yeah,
choose a direction.
yeah,
Yeah, totally.
we gotta commit sooner rather than later,
Yep, great. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, that was a quick meeting. Does anybody, next time won't be so quick, but does anyone wanna make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Hannah moves to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.